Hey everyone, this is a breakdown of the very twisty-turny, possibly canon-y, episode of Rick and Morty Season 7, Episode 10, Fear No Mort. We open on Rick and Morty walking through something called the Carnival of Nightmares. And right off the bat, this place is sick. Everything is mainly biological horror, like the trees have fetuses growing inside them and mouths. Lots of teeth, eyes and mouths everywhere. They're immediately confronted in a failed jump scare by what we can assume is an employee of the Carnival of Nightmares. Which is kind of funny to think about, like this thing receives a paycheck and at some point goes on break and just sits in the break room looking at its phone or something. But after getting past it, they walk into another area of the carnival, and a hilarious detail is that the trash cans here are monsters of some sort, because this is clearly meant to be a garbage can. We've got a guy playing some kind of throwing game over here, and the wall of the doors they walk through is painted with more monsters, the same way Disney does for its rides to maintain the immersion. I kept expecting this kid to pull out something funny, like an eyeball or something, but him and his alien friend just stare into the bucket the whole time. There are several human-alien pairings though, which is cool. Back here, the Ferris wheel has like solitary confinement cells instead of seats, which is funny. We've got one of those dropping rides up here, and some masks for sale down there. And the one that draws your eye, the lady sitting over a tub of knives instead of water. And then back here, even though this is definitely a themed trash can, they also have a regular trash can. So I wonder if maybe multiple animators had hands on this scene, or maybe they just have multiple types of trash cans. Rick and Morty complain that they're impossible to scare now, and a very Twilight Zone style guy cuts in offering to take them somewhere truly scary, and our guys hesitantly accept, heading back to Earth and landing at a Denny's, coming to its defense in the beginning of a pretty smooth ad, something they're surprisingly good at honestly. After the ad though, which I personally read Rick's face here as saying, just get the ad part over with, the waiter points them to the bathroom to the fear hole. And for a second here, we get this hilarious shot of this dude getting super excited to eat just a huge pile of bacon. And if it cost
$8 for a side of bacon?
I imagine this guy had a 3-figure check coming. They bust into the bathroom, and it is amazingly disgusting. I mean, we're talking dirty urinal, broken urinal, gross urinal dividers, overflowing trash can, leaky pipes, broken mirror, your classic disgusting toilet. Then another classic, the somebody was raised to be a monster toilet. And finally, the hole, which definitely does seem like the Last Jedi's mirror cave, no question. Now, for anybody wondering if there are any hints hidden between this scene of the hole and other scenes, including the last one where Morty actually comes out, there are literally 0 changes between any of the scenes, so I'm like 85% sure the ending really does happen outside of the hole. But I'll cover that more at the end. The hole has black seaweed seemingly just draped on the edges. When we see the inside at the end, it doesn't connect to anything inside at all. It may even just be there to make it spookier or something. They hit play on the VHS video called How to Hole. The Twilight Zone guy explains that the hole eats fear, which reminds me a little bit of this.
That's something. You were right. These things are just doing what they do in the wild. They love swallowing stressed out creatures for 20 minutes and then puking them up.
He also says after you do it, you get your picture on the wall, and we see 3 pictures, and they stay the same throughout every scene with the hole. As he explains, we can see that the bathroom was a little bit cleaner back then, though not much. This was also clearly filmed very suddenly, as our 2 bathroom patrons seem confused by the camera. The video cuts out, he looks evil, and we get a Mountain Dew ad featuring Gaddafi. Morty turns off the TV, and Rick decides they're not doing it. So Morty follows him out of the bathroom before hilariously sprinting back.
You little turd!
Now, starting the moment the cut happens, the moment he falls beneath the lip of the hole here, he is already under the effects. We see him falling very far, and it's clear from the final scene that the hole is just not that deep, or narrow for that matter. As he falls, something starts to envelop his hand. He looks at it confused until it finishes, materializing, and Morty screams, "Oh God!" The multi-faced monster distortedly returns Morty's scream, almost making fun of him. Then a monster hand reaches up and grabs Morty by the leg, yanking him down to the ground. This awesome-looking four-armed monster pops up behind Morty, holding a handful of maggots and says, "Still will I stuff you with maggots!" Which he really does, as we can see for a second later in the scene. But right here, where Morty yells for Rick, I think this is the moment when the whole understood Morty's fear. When he was being tortured by a monster, and he yells for Rick, which the whole happily produces a very believable Rick for Morty. So Rick shows up and shoots two blob-looking monsters before his gun disintegrates, and he switches to punching the monsters, which is shockingly effective. We've got a monster with some kind of hand things on its eyes, another generic blob monster, before literally punching a hole through the monster who was attacking Morty. They intentionally don't show Morty removing the maggots, probably for the same reason they didn't show them going in, because it would be too gross for network TV. Rick flies Morty out of the hole and puts their picture up on the wall as he laughs that they both shit our pants. They head home and the family is watching Cake or Fake from episode 7 this season.
And now back to Cake or Fake.
Please, come on! You have to know! Do I not breathe? Do I not speak?
Give me the knife.
No! Oh my God, please! I'm not a cake!
But this time with a convincing cake instead of a convincing human. And yes, we can see from the fact that the crystallized xanthanite is still on the cable box that this is in fact interdimensional cable. And for some reason, when the other Rick crashes in with Diane, the TV shuts off. The alternate Rick crashes down with Diane, and it's literally just the younger version of our Rick, with the blue pants and all. Rick and Morty realize they're still in the hole and head to the garage to debate what the fear is. I find these two lines eerily similar.
Your greatest fear is me getting Diane back.
What? Why?
Because then I won't need you.
Your fear of relying on Rick has been delicious.
Because if you think about it, Rick not needing Morty around would definitely eventually lead to Morty having to face his fear of relying on Rick. Meaning that even this early in the story, the whole is already trying to show Morty what his true fear is. Rick decides to
get more data. I'm dropping in for data.
That's the hardest thing in skateboarding!
It looks so easy on Pro Skater 3!
And the family goes to get ice cream. I really like the detail the Rick calls Diane.
D. What do you think, D?
What about this one? D's a bird!
I wonder if this is a made-up detail by the whole, or something Morty knows, and the whole is just reading Morty's mind, which is definitely something the whole has to be able to do. But anyways, Rick uses some de-aging serum, which we see again later, but Diane remains indifferent because Rick is being so callous. And the aging stuff is great. You can see literally even his skin tone changes with age, which is pretty realistic. They head back home and Rick and Morty debate what the real fear is again, and for a second time I think that the whole is trying to give Morty a hint here.
I'm doing this for you, Morty. The sooner I get her back, the sooner you can conquer your fear of being a useless, lonely turd.
So when Morty says,
"You don't think that's been faced?"
it's clear that he is at least semi-aware of what the real fear is. But like he said to Rick a second earlier,
Then you haven't conquered it, or accepted it.
Diane wakes up in Jerry's home office, where he wrote his amazing book that he got no credit for. You can also see his golf clubs, a reminder of it.
Mr. Meeseeks, I would like to take 2 strokes off my golf game.
And this tacky poster that is definitely something Jerry would get. Here's the robe we see her wearing in the next scene, and the Smiths clearly put out towels for her. Also, her shoes are down here. She exits the room and is greeted by a funny robot singing her an apology from Rick before it breaks down and says,
Why do I have memories of being a human child?
which is obviously a clue that Rick reused Morty's old robot from the Mad Max episode.
Remote override engaged? No! Yes! Bypassing override! I am alone! Hello?
Why do I have memories of being a human child?
Rick invites her to the zoo, and we get some extra background about Rick and Diane.
Yeah, I used them on a law enforcement drone that the feds had me build. It's how we, How I met my wife.
Though query whether this true or not since it's happening in the hole, we transition to the zoo and Summer tells us about a hilarious mini adventure.
And this one time we raised a civilization living on a zit on my face and Grandpa helped me rule over it as queen.
Rick blows Morty off and sits with Diane to feed some ducks as we get more exposition about Diane.
Your master's thesis, non-human intelligence.
Which makes sense that she would have also been a scientist. But again, we have to take everything in the whole with a grain of salt until either the show or the creators confirm it. Morty once again is on the sidelines as whole Rick follows his quest for Diane, and we get to see it a third time once they head to the bar. At the bar we can see Glar's name from the heist episode. I don't recognize any of the aliens in the bar scene, but if you do, please put it in the comments. They go outside to puke and they share a very sweet puke kiss, and anybody who enjoys partying with their partner knows what's up. And we get a fourth shot of Morty on the outskirts here before cutting to Rick in his garage, looking awful, but getting cleaned up. Back here we can see Morty's little spaceship bike. It's not usually there, but since he uses it a little later in the scene, they clearly wanted it in the garage already. Also, it's so cute that Rick did the classic matching the tie color to the dress color. Our boy's off to prom, but not really. They're really off to
Showbiz pizza?
Let me see that bear play banjo!
a real chain that used to be a Chuck E. Cheese competitor. And then we get this exchange, which seems to me to be another hint from the whole on how Morty can face his fear.
I'm afraid of watching you die!
I like that theory, Morty. So stop watching.
He's been tagging along with Rick, not actually doing the work. Rick tells him to stop tagging along and go off on his own, which is also exactly what Morty would need to do in order to face his fear of
Relying on Rick.
Morty tries to talk to the hole, but it doesn't respond, so he takes his spaceship bike back to the Denny's. He barges in and starts talking to the hole guy, doing the classic stereotype deconstruction that Rick is known for.
I'm supposed to go in there and be shocked that there's no hole or that there is a hole. What difference would it make?
Twilight Guy here gives a great little monologue about love and how it has to end.
It takes a very rare, very powerful being to be.
And just because I know there's a group of people who will think it's so deep and wise, let me just say that Morty is right with his initial reaction.
Dumb!
Let me just say exactly what Whole Guy here says, but without the dramatic tension, music, and scene building. Hello, just so you know, any relationship you're ever in will end eventually, either because of health reasons or relationship reasons. Now, was that deep? Or was that just a basic understanding of what mortality and being in a relationship is? Of course, everything ends. Even stars end. It in no way takes a rare or powerful being to understand that. It just takes a middle school diploma. I'm guessing every person watching this understood the concept that everything must end before watching this episode. It is a good scene though, and I actually think that this is still the whole trying to help Morty, because if you think about it when he says this.
But if you go, you'll take him away. Rick will die before accepting happiness. After that, we'll chase you with some clowns or some dumb shit like that.
He's literally telling Morty that Rick is not going to get him out of this, but that if he were to leave, he could get Rick out of it. He's pushing him to go off on his own, and to figure this out for himself, without relying on Rick. It's truly making him face his fear, and using his love for Rick as additional motivation. They make a joke out of another product placement.
Want to split some pancake puppies?
No!
And God, they really are masters at it. The next scene of Jerry being terrified of a little spider launches a short montage of Morty facing his fear, starting with swallowing the spider, which causes the hole to shake a little, which Morty thinks is because
My greatest fear is not being accepted.
which he is certainly afraid of, but it's not his biggest fear. So I think the hole just shakes when Morty experiences non-situational fear, meaning the difference between being scared of a knife at your throat or a monster shoving maggots in your stomach, and more permanent fears like intimacy or family deaths. So the montage launches, and we see him showing a list of the top 5 things he likes about Jessica, which he gets made fun of for only having 4 items on, which is pretty funny. For those of you who didn't pause to read, the list says 1. The smell of her gym shoes. 2. The way she says succulent. 3. Her name means foresight in Hebrew, which is pretty cool. Morty's full name, Mortimer, actually means Dead Sea. And since he goes by Morty, you could argue his name just means dead. which I think is funny. He then trust fall fails in front of strangers and then volunteers for a play without learning the words. And when he does that, we can see the girl from the toxic episode that Morty takes the hat off. We cut to Rick and Diane sitting by a taco truck eating tacos, talking about the ending of Lost. Diane explaining that in her universe,
Jack, Locke, and Sawyer teamed up to kill a fog monster and everyone got rescued.
which I would honestly love to see as like a director's cut ending or something. Rick says,
You can be great or you can be around forever, right?
and for a couple frames while saying this, he looks directly into camera. Also, the taco truck's license plate is Taco 3. Diane starts glitching, and actually it's the whole area, since even the guy getting tacos glitches. Rick realizes Morty has drawn a crowd to use up the hole's resources, the same way Rick did in M. Night Shyamalan's. Rick heads off to find Morty, and we cut to the 3 days of rain play, which for those of you who don't know is in fact a real play, and also a poorly rated movie. Obviously, the New York Times guy they mentioned earlier.
The New York Times is coming, and they're doing a feature on the current state of young American theater.
And they cut to him a lot, but it never really leads anywhere. Morty faces even more fear by coming out naked, and since he's been facing his fear, the hole makes him seem emaciated, the way it made fake Rick look. Rick and Diane show up, and Rick realizes he and Morty will die if he doesn't get them out, though he tells Diane he doesn't want to, who tries to convince him to stay. But he joins Morty nude on stage, and they do a rap like they've done a couple times before. It seemingly works, and the world starts to fade away, Diane waving goodbye to Rick. They wake up in the void again, floating, and swim up to the exit. They exit gasping for air, and Morty exclaims,
We did it!
Rick looks longingly at the hole, though, which leads to Morty realizing that he's afraid
Of being responsible for your sadness?
something that a lot of kids of divorce will relate to, but is generally just a very relatable line. The writers do a really good job of driving these more sincere moments home. Rick realizes he's afraid of Morty knowing something before him, so they wake up again in the void of the hole, which launches us into another montage. And this whole section is interesting, because the hole is resetting them back to the void, even when it's only fake Rick that realizes he's afraid of something. They're really focusing in on making sure Morty believes he has Rick here with him to sell him on the illusion, the same way the alien used the fake Morty to sell Rick on the outer illusions. And this Rick is very convincing. I mean, he literally goes full meta and references that this is a TV show the way real Rick does.
Swear to God, if we're still climbing out of this fucking hole 2 seasons from now.
So the hole must also realize it's in a TV show? Or maybe it's just having whole Rick say things that real Rick would without understanding the meaning. Anyways, they wake back up in the void, climb out, Morty making a great pun.
Is this gonna be a whole thing?
No wordplay, Morty.
And the hole once again uses Rick to try to help Morty figure it out.
We have to figure out our actual fears if we're ever gonna get out of here. Tell me your fucking fears so we can conquer it.
Morty gets noticeably defensive, but gets closer to his true fear when he guesses that
You'll never admit that you're afraid!
They climb out again, and Whole Rick says he's certain this is the real world. But Morty questions if he's afraid he could be certain and wrong, and they once again wake up in the void. I think the Whole had to do this, because if Morty points out a genuine fear in real Rick, the Whole has to acknowledge it, in order to keep Morty believing that the simulation is real. They climb out again, and this time it's Rick's fear of $8 bacon that resets them. After climbing out again, Rick realizes they must be afraid of the hole itself now too, and wake up one more time in the void. Rick makes the comment,
Swear to God, if we're still climbing out of this fucking hole 2 seasons from now.
and like I said earlier, maybe it's just the hole saying what it thinks Rick would say, without comprehending it. But with these showrunners, you really never know. I looked at every inch of this bathroom in every scene, trying to find differences, but there are none. So there's no real way to know if they're in the hole or not, at least not that I can tell. And every other time, they woke up in the void. So when he wakes up at the end, it really is the only different time. I'm just saying, these writers like to keep us on our toes, so any certainties we think we have, like Rick Prime being fully gone, or the hole actually being over, those could be overturned at any moment, in many ways, and I see a possible, though not probable, path. Anyways, they decide that perhaps the real fear is the fear of uncertainty, so they choose to be certain that they are in reality. Confident that either they truly are in reality, or that by believing it, they would be overcoming their fear and therefore be freed from the hole. We start another classic, Rick and Morty, heart-wrenching time lapse. And this one, I think, resonates most with people who've experienced derealization, or even some forms of just existential dread, which is clearly what they were going for. I mean, I couldn't count the times I've had literally this exact experience, and I'm sure there are plenty of viewers of the show who've felt the same thing. And here we can see him actively choosing to present happy in the moment, even through the uncertainty and derealization. It's an annoyingly relatable moment, something the show's too good at for its own good. Anyways, we get a montage of all the most classic Rick and Morty moments. Morty attends college and ages up, looking just like he did in Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Him and Rick go out drinking, and for some reason there's a singular square shot glass on the table. I have no idea why. Hopefully somebody in the comments will know. We see that the family sold the house and are moving using the classic tow company we've seen before. Summer gets married, the Beths are each killing a bottle of wine, and Rick's already passed out. Morty's got a camera and a yellow tie instead of a yellow shirt, and we don't see Jerry anywhere. Next he gets in trouble at work while wearing a yellow tucked-in dress shirt. Our boy likes his yellow. Rick hilariously main veins some anti-aging serum, and we see a wig of his hair. Morty buys a house, eats a TV dinner, and we finally get the twist we knew had to be coming eventually. Which obviously, most people are afraid of turning into their parents, I think. Even those of us who admire a lot about our parents don't want to be just like them. But still, another very realistic fear. Good job, writers. They climb out, and I love that Rick cracks his back like he's been sitting in an armchair for hours or something. It's like he's just getting warmed up, which is obviously true since he's already trying to get back out there, though Morty is not. And some people have said that Rick finally says the thing that makes Morty realize his fear, but I don't think that's the case. All Rick is expressing here is that he's going to get Morty out of this. Something he expressed every time he literally got Morty out of what he thought was the hole. Morty just wasn't capable of even seeing it when he first jumped in, but the hole kept trying, and I don't think the hole made Rick say this.
Come on, we're gonna get through this.
I'm staying here.
No, we're Rick and Morty. I'm not leaving without you.
To get Morty to realize his fear. I think the hole was just going to keep putting Morty through his fears, occasionally providing guidance when he veered off course.
Your greatest fear is me getting Diane back.
What? Why?
Because then I won't need you. I'm doing this for you, Morty. The sooner I get her back, the sooner you can conquer your fear of being a useless, lonely turd.
I'm afraid of watching you die.
I like that theory, Morty, so stop watching.
But if you go, you'll take him away. Rick will die before accepting happiness. After that, we'll chase you with some clowns or some dumb shit like that.
We have to figure out our actual fears if we're ever gonna get out of here. Tell me your fucking fears so we can conquer it.
Until he landed on it himself. Because in the end, nobody can really tell you what your greatest fear is. Even if someone did, if you didn't want to believe them, you wouldn't. You yourself have to be willing to see it. Arguably, towards the beginning, the Hole basically laid it out for Morty when Hole Rick said,
"Your greatest fear is me getting Diane back, because then I won't need you."
But Morty wasn't ready to see it yet. When Rick says,
"You're irreplaceable,"
it finally makes Morty realize his fear of relying on someone who doesn't care if he lives or dies, who wouldn't dive into the fear hole after him.
You're not even in the hole, are you?
Boom! Big reveal!
The Hole confirms this using a unique visual we hadn't seen it used before, and Morty finally faces his true fear. He screams,
"Dear God!"
and makes the same face the girl in the picture on the wall makes, and realizing the truth wakes him up at the bottom of the hole, which is seemingly just a normal looking hole underneath a Denny's. Lots of rebar, broken floor tiles from up top, some mud at the bottom, and some fallen black seaweed throughout. I mean, it literally looks like someone just lazily dug out the foundation underneath the specific stall down to dirt level, and draped some seaweed on the lip of the hole, which makes sense. It seems like the Twilight guy was the real hole all along. Maybe the physical hole is more like a metaphor because it doesn't want to enter your mind without consent or something. Rick asks,
Was it spiders?
which is not far off considering that was the first real fear Morty faced in the hole. Morty immediately has to confront the reality that Rick didn't jump in after him, though it's not because he wouldn't save him. I want to be clear that this is Morty's hang-up, which is okay. We're all allowed to have fear and doubts. But the reality is that our Rick has been willing to sacrifice himself for Morty before.
Rick! Oh!
Morty, where's your collar? I'll fix it.
I dropped it!
I'm okay with this. Be good, Morty. Be better than me.
Morty climbs out, processing the fact that Rick did not go in to save him, but also that he managed to get through it on his own. And he seems at peace, but he does ask Rick,
Am I irreplaceable?
obviously because whole Rick literally said,
You're irreplaceable.
but our Rick gives the classic him answer.
Define irreplaceable.
Morty hugs Rick, who seems confused, but goes to hug him back before Morty freaks out. But hey, if this is the worst we see from Morty's simulation PTSD, I'd say he's handling it well. I mean, remember how Rick handled his simulation PTSD? Because it's hilarious.
Hey, Morty.
What?
Hey, little buddy.
Have you been drinking, Rick?
I really appreciate you, Morty.
All right, Rick.
You little son of a
What are you
bitch!
doing, Rick?
Are you a simulation? Huh? Are you a simulation?
No!
They walk away, and Morty tells Rick about Diane being in there, but assuring him it's not something he would want. Rick hilariously does the same gag Morty did earlier, but hesitates before actually jumping in. Though, again, with these writers, you never really know, so don't count the hole out. Rick may have jumped in, and him thinking he didn't is just part of the simulation in the hole. Though, I do doubt it, honestly. He puts up a wallet photo of Morty, which is so sweet that he carries that around. After the credits, we catch up with Mr. Poopy Butthole again, and I don't know exactly where he is, but it definitely has something to do with Morty, because this is the toy at the head of Morty's bed. Morty also has this Rubik's Cube and this ship, maybe a toy box, maybe a dumpster, maybe a closet. There's grating with light shining through, and I assume these mean he's been counting days, which, if that's true, he's been in there for at least 30 days. So there's a small chance this cut scene could wind up being important somehow, though I'm guessing it's probably just a bit. He uses a portal gun to jump to a reality where he's still with his wife, tosses Poopy Jr., the toy we saw a second ago, and chucks his alternate self into whatever container he was in, along with the portal gun he used for some reason, meaning he's stranded there now, unless of course he gets help from this universe's Rick. On the wall we can also see the family photos include all of the Smiths throughout. I like the P on the door, though I feel like those usually go on the outside. Maybe I'm wrong. Amy brings him a classic Foamy's brand beer, and we cut on her suspicious gaze. This was a great episode. It definitely keeps us guessing up until the end. I want to do a quick roundup of the fears Morty faced though, because most of these are very real fears that most people deal with. 1. The fear of not being accepted. 2. The fear of being responsible for the sadness of a loved one. 3. The fear of a loved one not admitting their own fears, also interpreted as the fear of a loved one's emotional distance. 4. The fear of uncertainty. 5. The fear of becoming one of your parents. And 6. The fear of relying on someone who doesn't care if you live or die. I can honestly say I've struggled with every one of these, guessing most of you have too, and a show that can make me laugh at a stupid anti-aging serum meth joke and make me remember what it felt like to doubt reality. That's irreplaceable.
I mean, define irreplaceable.
That's good.
Thank you everyone so much for watching. I have a few channel updates. You may have noticed I removed the new videos on Sundays banner. That's because I want to feel free to spend more time on a video if I need to. My last video was the most successful one I've ever made that didn't ultimately get removed for copyright. At least not yet, so cross your fingers. It's also the video I spent the most amount of time on, so I need to take that reality check in stride and be willing to listen to my brain when it tells me to keep working on something, especially since it also finally got my channel monetized, which for me means that I can dedicate more time to making videos without worrying that this won't pay off at some point. So I'm going to be pouring a lot more of my time in the coming months into making videos. This one was actually suggested after I had already started writing it, but please know I take suggestions seriously and would also love to hear any feedback anybody has about the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.